Taipei ranked 10th in global quality of living. Blackout in Hong Kong after electric cable fire. Nobel Peace Prize auctioned for Ukrainian children. 2/3 of Ukraine's children are displaced. Russia's blockade of Ukraine is war crime. Big Oil bets on green hydrogen. South Korea launches homemade space rocket. Salvadorans are flustered by Bitcoin plummeting.
Hello, I'm Peggy. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. It is June 22nd, Wednesday, and here are your top stories. In the annual Quality of Life survey done by the British lifestyle magazine Monocle in 2022, Taipei has been ranked the 10th best city in the world for quality of living. Monocle said many different factors are considered in its comparison. For example, crime statistics, ambulance speed, number of bike lanes, access of nature, cost of living, retail, hospitality, and culture. In the article titled A Hidden Asian Gem, Monocle noted, Taipei is a subtropical oasis teeming with stunning hiking trails and walkable city streets.
This is the 15th edition of the Monocle annual survey. This year, the survey also looked at the change in working life after the coronavirus pandemic, the rise in the cost of living and the desire to breathe more easily. The Danish capital, Copenhagen, was singled out for its on-horse-barred approach to recovery in the face of COVID-19. The rest of the top 5 is all rounded out by other European cities, with Zurich placing second, Lisbon third, Helsinki fourth, and Stockholm in the 5th place.
A fire broke out on a CLP power cable bridge at Quang Ip Street in Yunlong at 7:12 p.m. June 21st, triggered a massive power outage in Hong Kong's New Territories West area. People in the Yunlong area reported hearing multiple explosions. Video of the bridge showed it bursting into flames and burning fiercely. It later collapsed. The blackout caused railway operations to be suspended and disrupted hospital services across 3 districts. The fire service department said it had received dozens of reports about people trapped in lifts.
Media reported the blaze centered on a cable bridge along Quang Ip Street near the Spectra residential estate. No injuries were reported, but MTR services between Zhengyuan West and Tuen Mun stations were briefly disrupted. The Tim Sui Wai station was temporarily closed. The hospital authority said services at Tuen Mun Hospital, Pok Oi Hospital, and Tim Sui Wai Hospital has been affected as the power supply was unstable. CLP Powered said its line for 140,000 households has gradually resumed, but it needed 2 days to complete repairs for another 20,000 households in Tin Sui Wai.
The co-winner of the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize and the editor of one of Russia's last major independent newspapers, Novaya Gazeta, Dmitry Muratov, auctioned off his Nobel medal for a record $103.5 million to 8 children displaced by the war in Ukraine. Heritage Auctions, which conducted the sale in New York, said in a statement on June 20th, the World Refugee Day, all proceeds from the auction will benefit Unicef's humanitarian response for Ukraine's displaced children.
Muratov Novaya Gazeta newspaper, fiercely critical of President Vladimir Putin and his government, suspended operations in Russia in March after warnings of the state over its coverage of the war in Ukraine. After the sale, Muratov said, "I was hoping that there was going to be an enormous amount of solidarity, but I was not expecting this to be such a huge amount. Previously, the most ever paid for a Nobel Prize medal was in 2014. A Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1962 was sold for $4.76 million.
According to a UNICEF briefing note on the situation of children in Ukraine on June 14th, UNICEF Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia, Afshan Khan, said, nearly 2/3 of Ukraine's children are displaced, whether displaced inside the country or those who have fled across borders as refugees. According to the latest figures from her colleagues, 277 children have been killed, with another 456 children injured, mostly due to the use of explosive in built-up urban areas.
In Ukraine,
Afsan Khan reported at least 256 attacks on healthcare facilities, and 1 in 6 UNICEF-supported safe schools in the east of the country has been damaged or destroyed. She believed that the war in Ukraine continues to have huge impact on children, both inside and outside the country. Afsan Khan said, "Thanks to the generous support of governments, companies, and individuals, we can continue to work across the country and region, including humanitarian cash transfers to extremely vulnerable families."
when children are on the move.
The European Union's top foreign policy official Josep Borrell Fontelles declared Monday, June 20th, the Russian blockade that has stopped Ukraine from exporting its vast storehouses of grain and other goods, threatening starvation in distant corner of the globe, is a war crime. Borrell said, "You cannot use the hunger of people as a weapon of war. Millions of tons of wheat remain blocked in Ukraine while in the rest of the world. People are suffering hunger. This is a real war crime, so I cannot imagine that this will last much longer."
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called Africa a hostage of Russia's war. In a video addressed to the African Union on June 20th, Zelensky said his government was engaged in complex negotiations to unblock grain reserves trapped in Ukraine's Black Sea ports. But the blockade has sent food prices soaring, and the food prices that are catastrophically rising has already brought the war to homes of millions of African families. Zelensky said, "Africa is actually a hostage of those who unleashed war."
To be well matched the 2050 deadline for the companies to achieve net zero carbon emission, major oil companies are planning large-scale investments in green hydrogen to remain as key players in a mid-21st century climate-compatible energy industry. Bloomberg reported British Petroleum, is now called BP plc, is taking the lead in the 36 billion Asian Renewable Energy Hub project that aims to install 26 gigawatts of solar and wind farm over a vast 500 square kilometer stretch of Western Australia's Pilbara region.
BP plans to use electricity generators to split water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Once fully developed, each year, it will produce about 1.6 million tons of green hydrogen or 9 million tons of ammonia, which can be used to make fertilizer. Total Energies SE has joined India billionaires Gautam Adani's conglomerate in a venture to invest $50 billion in green hydrogen. The venture could produce 1 million tons of annual green hydrogen by 2030, driven by 30 gigawatts of clean power.
South Korea launched its first domestically developed space rocket on Tuesday, June 21st. The launch has made South Korea the world's 10th nation to place a satellite into space with its own technology. Since the early 1990s, South Korea has sent a slew of satellites into space, but all from overseas launch sites or aboard a rocket built with the help of foreign technology. In 2013, South Korea successfully launched a satellite for the first time from its soil, but the first stage of its launch vehicle was manufactured by the Russians.
Media reported the Korea Satellite Launch Vehicle 2, a liquid-fueled rocket informally called Nuri, lifted off from the launch site in Gohyong at 4 p.m. June 21st. South Korea plans to conduct 4 more Nuri rocket launches in coming years. It also hopes to send a probe to the moon, build next-generation space launch vehicles, and send large-scale satellites into orbit. South Korean officials said the Nuri rocket has no military purposes. South Korea currently has no military reconnaissance satellites of its own.
According to the tracking site naibtracker.com, El Salvador under President Nayib Bukele's administration has spent about $105 million on Bitcoin, starting last September and paying an average of almost 46,000 per coin. After the price of the cryptocurrency fell below 20,000, the value of that investment in the currency, also known as BTC, is now calculated to have fallen by over 57%, or around 61 million. President Bukele has asked people to be patient. He tweeted on June 18th, "Patience is the key."
Media reported President Najib Bukele has touted Bitcoin as a way to significantly increase financial inclusion, drawing millions of people who previously lacked bank accounts into the financial system. He led the push to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender alongside the US dollar. El Salvador Legislative Assembly made the country the first to do so in June 2021. The IMF recommended that El Salvador dissolve the $150 million trust fund it created when it made the cryptocurrency legal tender, but was rejected.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. Let's make every day a fun day. I'm Peggy, your host. I'll see you next time.